Hello and welcome back to Squad Anime. You're here with Q, A, and we're missing David right now, but that's okay. He'll be back in a future video. He's just a little busy right now. So today we're going to cover the latest One Piece chapter 1060, titled Luffy's Dream. So we start out with Luffy figuring out that the world thinks Sabo killed Vivi's dad. And he's like, there's no way Sabo would do something like this in a million years. And I have to agree, that is not Sabo's character. He's not somebody that we've seen in the past as a person that would kill indiscriminately. Maybe if they deserved it, but he didn't even kill Jesus Burgess on Dressrosa, and I feel like he kind of had it coming. What about you, Q?
That's absolutely right. Sabo has always been a kind of like morally upstanding person, and so Luffy is 100% right to be outraged. He's like, he would never do something like that. Even Robin agrees. She's like, the Revolutionary Army is against world nobles, not regular kings. And then they kind of go over what we already know, but what the world is perpetuating as the propaganda. The Revolutionary Army declares war on the Celestial Dragons, King Cobra is assassinated by Sabo, and Princess Vivi is missing. And Luffy in his rage, he's like, set a course for Alabasta right now! And meanwhile, Zoro's like, listen, what good is that gonna do? Like, Cobra's dead and Vivi was last seen at Marijua. And Luffy's like, well, let's go there instead. And you know, my boy Caribou is still apparently hijacking his way on the Straw Hat ship, hiding in a barrel, like, can barely hear what's going on.
Yeah, I find it funny that Caribou's in the background, but, you know, they have no idea. Or they have some idea, they just don't know, like, what's in the barrel. Because Frankie locked him in the barrel all the way back when they were approaching Fishman Island, remember?
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that's become his new, like, spot on the ship. But I find it pretty interesting that the government is using the news to, like, spread this propaganda, or at least they're manipulating the information that was reported to the news. So I think it's interesting because I think Big Morgans, who runs the news for the World of One Piece as far as we know, would definitely not be one to hide away from the truth. So I guess whatever information he was presented with appeared this way at the time, and we'll have to see what he thinks when the truth comes out. But moving on with the storyline, Zoro's surprised. He's like, you moron, that's the death of the enemy. He's like, you know, you should slow down and think about this. And then Luffy, in his rage, is like, what's wrong, are you chicken? and you see Sanji crying. He's like, where are you, Vivi? I want to cuddle you. I want to make you feel better. And I think that it just shows to Sanji's simp nature. But that's just me. That's why Zoro's my number one and not Sanji. Chopper's crying. He was reminiscing on how nice Cobra was to them. It's funny because, you know, we have a large portion of the Straw Hats who haven't been there for the Alabasta arc.
Jinbei, Frankie, Brook, none of them know. They don't have that same bond like that the rest of the crew had with Vivi. They weren't there for the cross mark. They weren't there for the intense like early fight that they had in Alabasta against like this criminal level organization. And so it's just not the same. They can tell that like it's bothering them, but they just don't have that same connection.
Yeah. So like you mentioned, we cut from Jinbei to Frankie to Brook. Frankie says that, hey, wait, this is the same Sabo guy we met in Dressrosa, and I totally forgot that Sabo had met a small portion of the crew, you know, because I don't think that Ace met the crew members that Sabo met, so I think that's pretty cool that he picked up where Ace left off. And then Brook was saying he's never known anyone to be discontent with the way Alabasta's ruled, and, you know, Brook having that long history, being, you know, over 100 years old, it kind of tracks that the Kingdom of Alabasta has always been a well-ruled nation, to say the least. We cut to Zoro's reasoning behind him wanting to leave it to Vivi.
So Zoro pretty much is like, hey, remember what you said about Ace that one time? And we get the little flashback where Luffy's like, Ace has his own adventures. And he said you trusted him to make his own way until the point where he actually needed help. So why underestimate Vivi? She can hold her own. Which, before I even continue, can we talk about how wild that is to like bring up as a defense? He's like, hey, remember your brother who died and you probably wish you did more to save him? Well, yeah, I'm like, what argument is that? Like, if anything, he should probably be like, yeah, we should go get Vivi right now before we got an Ace Part 2 situation.
I think it's funny that he was talking about Vivi in that situation and not Sabo. At first, I thought he was talking about Sabo because of that whole, like, you know, that whole mix-up. But for Zoro to talk about Vivi this way and having had to have saved Vivi, it's like, so I don't think it's fair for Zoro to compare Vivi to Ace, you know, because they're two totally different, like, power levels and strengths. And I mean, there's no real way that Vivi can fight back against some entity like the world government. And I think she was actually taken by CP0. And if she was taken by CP0, there's absolutely no way she can break out on her own. Then the Straw Hats would have to interfere, you know?
Despite Zoro's kind of flawed argument, he continues, he's like, if the opportunity presents itself, we can pitch in then, but in the meantime, just have faith and quit belly aching. And no one's having it. Luffy's like, you can't stop us from worrying. And everyone calls him mean names, with Luffy calling him an Onigashima, and Nami calling him a green Kaido, and Chopper calling him a green mom, and then Sanji jumping in calling him a crappy moss head, to which Zoro's like, shut it forth. Never yes. Letting Sanji live down that lower bounty.
That 4th place ranking, taking him out of the top 3 bounties in the Straw Hats, and I think that's hilarious, because he was at one point behind Robin too. So Sanji's got some catching up to do. Robin mentions that there are still a lot more developments and things seem to be escalating. The abolishment of the warlords, the elite pirates are back together, the Cross Guild was founded, and Luffy's saying there has to be some kind of mix-up because there's no way Buggy is leading the Cross Guild, or at least not purposefully. Not through his intentions anyway. Yeah,
so this is the man that Luffy himself called stupid. Like, that's how you know that you're taking a massive L. If, like, the man who everyone on his crew calls him an idiot calls you stupid, like, there's no hope.
I also want to note that Robin said that she wouldn't tell Luffy anything else that, you know, wouldn't overload him with information. So there might be even more in the news that we don't know about yet.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But Luffy, you know, he even says that he'll leave it up to her. He's like, I don't have the time to be worrying about everything going on. He's like, just keep me up to date on anything big. And then he cries out some more about how Sabo's innocent, and he just had he said he had a real strict upbringing, and he just wants to make sure no one else has their freedoms taken the way he did.
And I want it to be noted that Robin had a really intimate relationship with Sabo while she was at the Revolutionary Army during the 2-year time skip, because that's who she was, you know, kind of training with to make herself stronger. So she could speak to Sabo's character, and with both of them backing this up, you know that they don't believe the news at all.
Yeah.
Is what I'm trying to get at.
It's one of those things, anyone who knows Sabo knows that, like, there was something up.
But then we cut to a huge, like, cliffhanger, or like, not cliffhanger, a huge foreshadow where Luffy talks about Sabo's dream, and then he says, I'm going to, and then blank. And then he cuts to the crew again. He said, the 3 of us swore an oath, be him and Ace. And I said that I'd, and then nothing. There's just, all you see are the crew members' reactions, and it varies from person to person, from laughing to complete speechlessness to bold admiration from Chopper. And, you know, we're kind of like, what is it he's trying to accomplish? Because the whole time we thought it was him trying to become the Pirate King, but it seems like there's more to it, because after he says, but I'll have a shot if I become King of the Pirates. So it's like, what is his real dream? We learned that there's levels to this shit.
I mean, we've always known that he had another dream besides King of the Pirates, because we got to see that flashback scene, like, around the time of Ace's death, where they made their promise, and Luffy said whatever, this dream that we never get to hear, and got, like, a reaction of, like, laughter and, like, getting looked at like he was crazy from Ace and Sabo. And then we also later find out that Gold Roger, back before his death and his official crowning as the King of the Pirates, when he was with Whitebeard and Odin, he said something similar. He was like, and then I can accomplish my dream of, and we cuts out and we get that exact same reaction of them being like, are you serious? That's such a crazy dream, blah, blah, blah. And he said, and Luffy even says, like, when he's talking about how, like, I've never told this to any of you guys before. I could have swore I would have mentioned this. And then he's like, I guess I only ever told Shanks, Ace, Sabo, and that's it. And I'm wondering if maybe another thing that makes Shanks so certain that Luffy is the one is the fact that his dream, whatever he said, is the same thing that Gold Roger was trying to accomplish in his dream.
I wonder if Roger had told Shanks his dream, before his passing, and Shanks is kind of, associating that with Luffy even more, and that's why he gave him the straw hat, because it's required somehow to fulfill the dream. We know that there's a big significance to the straw hat because of the giant one that's locked up on Mary Joie, right?
Yes.
And then we know that it was inherited by it was inherited by Shanks from the former Pirate King, then passed on to Luffy. So this straw hat is obviously has something to do with the whole story tie-in, not just symbolically, but like
yeah, I get what you're saying, like the symbolism of the straw hat, but also like quite literally, like the straw hat plays a role in the story. And I'm wondering if maybe the giant one that we saw at Mary Joie, maybe like that belonged to Joy Boy or something. Like Joy Boy once wore, since we know that the power of Joy Boy's devil fruit, the human model Nika, like let Luffy pull up these insanely cartoon powers where he literally turned himself into a giant. And so I'm wondering if maybe Joy Boy had done something similar, and that's where the giant straw hat that they had came from.
There's some theories around Joy Boy being a giant, and that's why the straw hat was so big. But moving on, we can theorize about that stuff all day. They mentioned that they'll have to find the last poneglyph, and Robin even admits that they have no idea where to look. And I think this goes back to the man marked by flames, whoever that is, and they'll need to search out that individual. But moving on from that, we leave the Straw Hats and we go to Marine HQ.
So at Marine HQ, they pretty much say that they've intercepted a transmission from Flame Emperor Sabo to the Kamabaka Queendom, and they're trying to figure out where it's coming from and pinpoint its origin. And they're like, he's not using a white transponder snail to jam his call, and they're like, he must be desperate, like he won't be talking for long, we have to trace his position. They're like, where is he? The Lulusia Kingdom. We see the Gorosei are talking like, Lulusia, really now? That's one of the 8 nations that rebelled a few weeks ago. It would be an ideal place for Sabo to seek refuge. And that one of them even says he's an unlucky man, and the other says, no, this is fate. And we kind of cut to the Kamabaka Queendom, where we get to see what Sabo is saying during that call.
I think it's really cool that you see the foreshadowing of Emu being there as the Gorosei are talking, because he's walking to do something, and you're like, what could this guy be up to? This person, this entity, because we don't even know like what Emu is, right? Mm-hmm. But moving on, we have Sabo communicating to the Revolutionary Army, finally saying that he wasn't the one who killed Cobra, and everyone had faith in him, but Dragon has a very serious disposition. So there's still a lot more to realize. And this is actually a huge reveal in One Piece. So listen, he says listen. When I was at Mary Joie, I saw something unbelievable. And then as he's telling this account of what he saw to the Revolutionary Army, the sky darkens. And everyone on the island kind of comments like, hey, there's something going on up there. Like, why is the sky gone dark? Why do I hear boss music?
So we get to see that the king of Lulusia, Seki, is locked up in jail along with Princess Komane. And he's like, you heathens will regret this. When Navy HQ gets a word of this treason, you'll all be impaled. And the princess is like, make sure to leave a few for me, Papa. I'll never forgive these dirty plebs. And we see that the people are like, Your Majesty, Lord Seki, just please confess to your crimes. We don't want to have to kill you. And I'm not even sure what crimes they want him to confess to, but there's more important things going on, because we see first Im-sama's eyes, the dark shadow, the terrifying figure, as Sabo's like, it happened in the throne room at Pangea Castle. and they're like, cut the signal to the surveillance division's transponder stales as Im Sama crosses out Lelouch on a map. And then Sabo says, I thought that there was no king of the world, but the empty throne wasn't empty. We kind of see someone else talking, we assume the Gorosei. As far as the surveillance division is concerned, no one detected anything abnormal today, no information was intercepted, and we kind of see that the people of Lelouch are like, what is that up there? Is that a shadow as like the darkness starts to condense? And someone says, a little kid's like, Papa, I'm scared, and even Sabo is kind of distracted for a bit. And then we see Im Sama's eye once more as the subtitles say, as for Lelouch, that country never existed, and we see what looks like a spirit bomb level equivalent just getting dropped on the island, annihilating everything.
So Lelouch just got wiped off the map. It no longer exists, and the government's gonna play it off like they never existed as well either. I think that it is crazy that we just saw an island get decimated. Not just decimated, obliterated.
Yeah.
There is no trace of the island left, and all you hear is that they have reports of sea quakes from the southeastern shore, and no one could hear from Sabo. So a few days later, we cut off to the Thousand Sunny, and the Straw Hats are in some weird like ice water, and it seems like the wind is strong. Their ship's getting like tossed left and right. Despite all this wind, Chopper's about to go out in a very big hat that captures wind, and so he's off to go outside. Robin comments that he looks dashing, and then we cut to Luffy saying, what in the world is that? And then you see that it's this weird like swirling vortex of water, and Nami says it's like a giant warm eddy. I'm not 100% sure what an eddy is, but she says an eddy current, but it's going upwards. Nami clarifies it must be a mass of warm water that's being forced up somewhere from this point from the shore, and Brooke says it looks like an afro.
Yeah, quick reminiscence to the afro power, you know, One Piece knows.
Nami's telling Jinbei to move or else he'll be swallowed up, but you know, I don't think that Jinbei has anything to worry about because he's a master helmsman. Then Luffy makes a startling discovery.
Yes, he's like, wait, somebody's trapped in the water. And they're like, for real? How could anyone be alive in there? Is it a mermaid? And even Sanji's like, no, he's right. I can definitely hear a lady in distress. And Nami's like, through a body of water? Sanji's simp levels know no bounds, okay? He will defy the laws of everything in order to simp. But they're like, are you guys serious? Even if someone's in there, what are we supposed to do? And then Zoro's just like, I'll cut it. And Sanji's like, you better not leave a scratch on the lady. And Zoro pulls out his one sword style bird dance as he cuts right through that like strange warm eddy whatever current. And Chopper comes out and he's like, what's all the commotion, guys? He's like, Amagasa Hat Chopper here reporting for duty before getting swept up by the wind. It's just too strong.
Yes. And then Usopp's like, why did you come out? Meanwhile, Chopper has to be saved by Luffy, but he's getting blown away too. And then you see that something gets spit out by the water, and it's a kid, but not just any kid.
One of the worst generation, the gluttony Jewelry Bonnie with a bounty of 320 million berries.
Yes, the last time we saw her, she was on the Holy Land of Marizwa, and she was working undercover somehow. She was a old lady on the island, if I remember correctly. And then before that, we see that she was captured by Blackbeard and then given to Akainu. So I think Bonnie has a huge role to play in One Piece that we don't yet know about. And I think it might have something to do with her power because she's able to change her age as she desires. So I wonder what her true age is. And I can't wait to see what kind of impact she has on the series.
Yeah.
So that concludes the recap for chapter 1060. Anything to add, Akil?
Just that Jewelry Bonnie, since she was at Marizwa, maybe she also saw or knows something upon passing over to the Straw Hats, like could be a game changer in the same way that Sabo saw that the empty throne wasn't empty. Maybe she witnessed something regarding what happened to Cobra or Vivi's kidnapping or mysterious disappearance. And so maybe she'll definitely have answers there, but I'm also excited because I feel as though, like, of the ones from the worst generation, I feel like Jewelry Bonnie is the one that we see and like learn the least amount about. Like, we saw her back when she saved Zoro and Sabaody, and like a couple times on the side here and there, but never genuine in the way that like we had Kid and Law, who are constantly showing up in the story, and we learn a lot about them, and they're fighting alongside Luffy and the rest of the crew. I feel like she definitely was someone who we knew more about Scratchman and Pooh than we knew about her. Like,
that's very true. But I think we're gonna end the video here, and we're gonna have the I'm thinking about having the chapter recap as one episode and then discussion as another. So if you guys like this format, please comment and say that you guys enjoy that. Makes it a little bit easier to digest for the audience. So if you guys just like our discussions, you guys can just view that and not have to save the recap. If you guys don't read One Piece but would like to recap, there you go. So that's all I have to say. Akil, anything to add?
Nope, that's about it. Make sure to like and subscribe, tell your friends, hit the bell, stay tuned for our next video, and squad out.